I'm going to say welcome to the 38th International Seating Symposium. But I guess the first thing we just want to say is like, welcome back together. So, yay. It's been a long 3 years. So some of us were in Vancouver in 2020 when the pandemic just started. Some of you were here in 2019 when we did the first time we were back to Pittsburgh in many years, but it's good to be together again. So let's enjoy this moment and take advantage of the opportunity to be together, go to sessions, go to the exhibit hall, network. It's been a long time. So I'm Mark Schmaler. I have the pleasure of being the co-director now of the International Seating Symposium. I'm going to introduce you to Rachel Hibbs in a minute. She's going to be working with us now. So we have quite a good crowd here today. This is nice to see. So I want to start out by just saying thanks to some people, especially the people who are involved in putting this great conference together. It's not a large group, and I think a lot of you have learned that over the years. There's not a whole floor in some ivory tower of 50 people working on ISS. It really comes down to like a core group of 8 of us. So myself, Rachel, Rich, Carl has come on as the ISS continuing ed manager. We've got Joe Ruffing, G'day, who does our IT. Julie's joined us, and Barry Steelman did a really great job of pulling the exhibitors together. So hats off to all of them for the great work they've done. And I'll say that a lot of them are volunteers too. So, but it's great to see that a dedicated group of people have been able to put such a great conference together. And our advisory board, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention them. We've got, Anna, Kendra, Felipe, Carmen, Wayne, Jerry. Some of them have been with us for a while. Some of them are new to us. Julie and Emma, who couldn't make it because I think she's getting married this weekend. Of course, I can't forget Brian too. So we have, last I counted, I think the other day we're at about 35 countries. Obviously couldn't pull all the flags together at the last minute, but I think that's a great testament to people finding a way to get here. And it wouldn't be the International Seating Symposium if we didn't have everybody from around the world joining us. So welcome, everybody. And then, of course, this conference is really about two main groups of people coming together, and that's sort of been the model we've used for years, and I think it's worked well. The cost of putting this kind of conference together is certainly not inexpensive. The venue is, the thing, we have lots of resources have to be put into place to make this work. The exhibitors make up a good half of what makes this conference what it is, and our sponsors obviously are a big part of that. So I want to obviously acknowledge, whoops, I think I'm getting ahead of myself here. I want to certainly acknowledge the sponsors in the exhibit hall. We have ETAC, if people know that company. It's been around for a while, but it's welcome back to the United States. They're now working with Key Mobility. Quantum also is one of our diamond sponsors. Permobil and Sunrise coming in as the platinums. Our golds are Adaptive Imports, a new company coming in, Light. So go out and see them too. And of course, the other one's 2 Motion Composites. And we have several bronze sponsors as well. So thank you, all of you, and thank all of the attendees that are here. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to our co-director, Rachel Hibbs.
Thanks, Mark, and thank you all. Welcome to Pittsburgh. I get the wonderful honor of thanking the volunteers. We have volunteer coordinators who run all of our volunteer services. So thanks to Becky Russell and Joe Stratman and all of the volunteers who are running around behind the scenes, making sure you have your codes and the doors are open, chairs are in the right places, and all of those other things that make this place run. So thank you to them. I get to do a little bit of housekeeping. So for continuing education units, many of you are familiar if you've been here before, but if not, we will have CEU codes at the end of every session, including this one. Someone will read out the code a few times at the end of the session. Either write it down or have your app ready. You can put it right into the app in the session and do the course evaluation to get your CEU credits. I mentioned the app. If you have a smartphone or a tablet, I encourage you to download the app either from the App Store, Android or iOS App Store, and search 38th International Seating Symposium. You'll find our app. Everything you need to know, the schedule, the speakers, exhibit hall layout, all the notifications of anything changes, session titles, etc. It will all be in the app. A new announcement this year is that instead of publishing and handing out paper copies of all of the sessions and papers for the sessions, we are publishing in the Assistive Technology Journal. I'm very excited about that. You will be able to search it. It will be public open access, published after the conference. So all attendees will receive an email from us when that happens, but that's exciting for speakers that you can cite your presentation. And the abstracts, again, will be published in the Assistive Technology Journal. So I get to introduce quite a few people here for the next few minutes, starting with John Perlman, the Department Chair of Rehabilitation Science and Technology at the University of Pittsburgh.
Thank you, Rachel. As Rachel said, my name is John Perlman. I'm the department chair of the University of the Department of Rehab Science and Technology, and that's really the administrative head. And that department puts this on, and it is always incredibly humbling to stand in front of a large audience like yourselves. And I can't tell you how proud I am of the team that Mark mentioned that put this together, and how I think just humbled I am to be back in person with you all. This is, say, one of the most important activities that our department's involved in. It's, there's a lot of reasons for that. I think when I thought through it, the reason I can sort of sum it up into is that it inspires us all. It inspires us to do our work more related to seating and mobility. And I hope you all are also inspired by your colleagues and by sessions that you see where it drives some of your service work and improves quality in the products and services and helps fundamentally build the workforce for service providers. And that's why it's so important to us for you all to come here, and we appreciate all of you attending, and it's a very exciting time for us. The work that we do in my department is been focused on driving, three pillars of areas in the wheelchair and assistive technology sector. First, it's related to service, and we do that in partnership with our medical center here at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, and Mark Schmaler is the director of the Center for Assistive Technology. So one of the ways that we contribute is by directly providing technology and using the research that we do and the research that you do to infuse that service and improve it continually. We also train the workforce. We train service providers, and something that we're doing here through continuing ed, and also as part of our master's programs and PhD programs. I've already seen several alumni, and it really warms sort of my heart to see that generations carry on and continue the important work of providing services. And then the third area is research, and we research a whole wide range of things, but it's all ultimately focused on driving improvements in service products and policies. And much of the work that the team in RST does is focused on the US and that US population. But we do have a group that has focused for the last several years on the international sector. And that has been with the support of funding from the US Agency for International Development. So that is US taxpayer dollars that has come to us to try to drive services, improve service quality, improve product quality, and improve policies, and also build the workforce. And that work, I am very proud to be part of the leadership team that has done that. And last year, we went through a very sort of intentional and systematic process to, first of all, launch a nonprofit out of the university to lead that activity moving forward, and then hire an executive director. After reviewing 80 plus very qualified candidates, I'm happy to report that we were successful on two fronts. One was to find an eminently qualified leader of that organization, and the second was to convince him to take the job. And so it is my great pleasure to hand off the mic to Alex Kamadou, who is now, as of November last year, is the executive director of the International Society of Wheelchair Professionals, and he's going to come up and talk about his the activities of ISWP, which are now in over 100 countries, and also his vision for the future of the organization. So thanks again, and have a great conference.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, John, for that very warm welcome and introduction. Greetings, everyone, from South Africa, one of the most beautiful countries in the world, with diverse people, beautiful beaches, fine wine, and yet we also have one of the most unequal health systems in the world, and also the highest rates of HIV and gender-based violence that you can find. Now, access to appropriate assistive technology is enshrined in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and yet years later, only 10% of the population actually have access to this. And this is astounding, and something needs to be done. So ISWP, or the International Society of Wheelchair Professionals, was born out of the need for greater coordination in the wheelchair sector with regards to coordination, products and standards and training. And as John mentioned, it was incubated under the University of Pittsburgh for the last 8 years. And I'm happy to say we are now acting as a standalone entity or not-for-profit entity. And I'm both humbled and proud to be able to lead the organization through this next phase. So ISWP continues to improve the quality of lives of persons with disabilities, particularly those who are wheelchair users, by working through 3 pillars. 1, we advocate for governments to pay for and provide appropriate wheelchairs and wheelchair services. 2, we focus on training individuals to be able to assess and prescribe correct wheelchairs and to train wheelchair users in how to use the wheelchair and maintain it. And 3, we also work in the space of innovation and looking at how we can improve the quality of products by working with people like yourselves in the industry. So these past few years have been very hectic for all of us with the global pandemic and also the various humanitarian crises that have faced the world. And there's a few things that I just want to highlight about ISWP that we've been doing to help improve things in this area. So the first thing we're very proud of is that we launched the Wheelchair Educators Package, or WEP as we call it, last year at the World Federation of Occupational Therapy Congress. Now the WEP, if you haven't had a look at it, I strongly suggest you do take a look at it. It is an excellent resource where 33 individuals from 21 countries working across the entire sector came together to develop a resource that can be shared for educators who want to integrate wheelchair content into their curricula. And this is a fantastic resource, and I cannot stress how important it is for us to continue to grow the future generation of allied health professionals. And this is a tool that can help you do that. The second thing that I'm very proud of is that we have worked really hard to build our networks and our collaborations. And one such collaboration that is exciting for us is that we developed the Wheelchair Service Provision Guidelines together with the WHO and the International Society of Prosthetists and Orthotists. And we are launching that, the Wheelchair Provision Guidelines at the ISPO Congress in a few weeks' time in Mexico. So this is quite an achievement, and this gives countries guidance and recommendations on how to improve and develop appropriate wheelchair services. So it's an excellent resource that's going to be coming forward. And at ISWP, we continue to work in the two areas that we've always worked in. And the first one is the standards working group that develops validated quality testing standards, particularly for low resource countries and adverse environments. And the second thing is that we've developed online courses for the basic and intermediate training based on the WHO wheelchair provision training. So we also have, for those who don't know, we also have some credentials related to this. You can take a test for the basic online training, and there's a process for the intermediate training as well. And you can get a credential as well. So we're very proud to be here and delighted to be part of this conference. And we've curated quite a lot of content that we're going to be presenting some of the things that I mentioned. We have a breakfast event tomorrow morning for the early birds. And for those who've registered, we're looking forward to meeting you in the Allegheny Overlook room. I'm told that there's stunning views. We've got some coffee and some refreshments. So please come and join us. And we're looking forward to hearing about the interesting work that you're doing and finding new ways to collaborate. And there are members of our ISWP team, and they're going to be presenting some of the online resources and also some of the training packages that we actually have. So please do join us. We've also got a stand at the exhibition hall. So pop around and come and say hello, and yeah, just get to know us a little bit better. And we'd love to know what you're doing. It's a really exciting time to be working in assistive technology and the wheelchair sector and posture management. But I think we also can't remain complacent because there's so much more work that needs to be done. So with that, I'd like to also wish you a very pleasant exhibition over the next few days, and looking forward to meeting you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Next, we have Andrea Van Hook, the Executive Director of RESNA.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for that warm welcome. I'm especially grateful for it because many of you probably know that last Wednesday, RESNA's automated system sent out emails to everyone in the database, and your ATP had either expired already, which was a big surprise, or it was going to be renewed very soon, a year and a half from now. So my apologies for that, but I bet you know when your ATP certification is due now, don't you? You're very welcome. It is a pleasure to be here today, and I want to thank Mark and Rachel and John and everyone at the University of Pittsburgh for including RESNA. This is the second year that RESNA has offered a track at ISS. We offer this because we are providing service to the field. So it's seating and mobility, yes, and what else do you need to know when you're working in this field? So we have some stunning volunteers who are here with us this week to provide sessions for you. Right after this is Seat Yourself with K through 12 school teams. If you've ever wondered what went on inside a school once you sent a kid off in his or her wheelchair, this is the session for you. Standards, it's not about where we are, it's where we are going. We have 9 standards committees that are actively working on assistive technology. The RESNA Certification Town Hall this afternoon with the one and only Julie Periano. Position paper on 24/7 posture care management. Many of you know that RESNA does publish position papers. Our most recent is in partnership with the Clinicians Task Force. Thank you, Kara, on standing technology. These are offered for free on the RESNA website, and one that's in development right now is 24/7 posture care management. And the way we develop these position papers is through input from you, from the field. So it's very important that you provide that input. Tomorrow, we have AAC for the ATP. Just basics to know about AAC and how to work with speech language pathologists. Rehabilitation engineers, who we are and what we do. Some people are afraid of rehabilitation engineers, myself included. But they're really lovely people. So do go. And then we also have another position paper that's in the process of being updated, and it's a review on the update for tilt, recline, and elevating leg rests. And we really would appreciate your input on that update. It was published in 2015, so we know a lot has changed. So thank you again very much. And thank you for your dedication and commitment to this field. It is really inspiring to come in every day and work at RESNA, and it's because of the work that you do. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrea. Next, we have Kara Masseling, the Executive Director of the Clinician Task Force.
Good morning. It's so exciting to be here, and thank you, ISS, for allowing us a couple minutes to talk about the Clinician Task Force. This organization is a nonprofit organization based in the United States, and we have been around for 19 years now. Tomorrow or next year will be our 20th. And we are clinicians, so PTs and OTs across the United States that are experts in seating and wheel mobility. We're always looking for more members. And so please feel free to go to our website, cliniciantaskforce.org, and check us out. We pride ourselves on making systems level changes and educating people on CRT, and especially other clinicians who may or may not have had the education in their academic schoolwork that we want them to have, and that wheelchair users need us to have in order to get the most appropriate equipment. And so we have different work groups that work on tasks throughout the year. And we are fueled by passionate clinicians. And so we really, really hope that you stop by our booth, booth 920, check us out, talk to us. We have somebody there. The other cool thing is that we have signs across the exhibit hall for our sponsors who are so gracious with their donations so that we can keep doing the work that we do. And then we also have our presenters, our members who are presenting here. You should see some badges on slides too. So please look for those and talk to us if you're interested in the work that we do. A couple of notable projects that we've worked on in the recent past. You may or may not have heard about Medicare and an NCD reconsideration request for power seat elevation and power standing systems. And we have been instrumental in working with other organizations to get that to happen. And so that's just an example, but we really, really strive to make change, and we cannot do it without our members, who you already impact people on a daily basis with the work that you do, but coming together and making these systems level changes can make an even bigger impact. We frequently work with some of the other organizations like INCART and RESNA on these projects. And so we are so thankful for them also. And we know, if we know two things about CRT, it's one, that it takes a long time and that changes take a long time, and two, that we need a team around us, and we hold to those values, and we're just so thankful. So have a great time at ISS and have fun.
Great, thank you, Kara. Next, we have Wayne Grau, Executive Director of NCART.
Well, good morning, everybody. Really do appreciate and thank University of Pittsburgh for allowing us to come out here and address everybody. It's great to see everybody here live rather than a floating face within a square. So appreciate that. Folks, we're facing a pivotal time in our industry. We have a lot going on. We have new opposition. We have obstacles that are popping up, but we also have an incredible opportunity to apparently that bug likes me. We have an incredible opportunity to reshape the industry and how we service patients over the next 5 to 10 years. So it's an exciting time for us. The industry, providers, manufacturers, clinicians, ATPs, academics, consumers, all got together recently, as Kara had mentioned, and really advocated and fought for and demanded action on seat elevation. In my 20 years of working in this industry, I've never seen a time when there was such collaboration among the stakeholders, and it was great to see. You know, we weren't going to accept no. We weren't going to accept, hey, wait till next year. We made sure that CMS heard the data, but also heard how important this incredible product is to the individuals that need it. And it was all up to the work that you folks did. So I would tell you that I have a lot of thanks to hand out here, but I'm just going to do it in one big swoop. I want to thank all the folks here, all the associations that work together on this, but I also like to thank every one of you. There were 3,500 plus comments that were submitted. Your voice was heard, and it's incredibly important that they do hear it. So thank you for all you did on seat elevation. Now, are we done with it? Not yet. We have a lot more to do. We're going to have to rally the troops again because we have another great product that needs to have coverage, and that's called power standing systems. And that's our next goal, to get that covered. 20 years ago, when I first got into government affairs, I went to a meeting in Queens, New York, with Representative Joe Crowley and Jerry Dickerson. I think you guys may know him. I don't remember a lot from that day, but I do remember one thing that Jerry said to me, and that was, Wayne, if we don't fight for our patients, who will? It's a pretty profound statement, and it sticks with me today. Every time we run up against an obstacle, every time we run up against a bureaucrat who thinks they can deny coverage because it's fiscally irresponsible, I remember, who's going to fight for them? We are. We have an opportunity, and we continue to do these things moving forward. I will tell you that I wish I could give you good news that everything is going to be clear sailing from here on out. It's not. We have a lot more work to do. There are some storms that are brewing, and we're going to fight them. But they aren't coming from the normal area, which is the federal government. They're covering more on the state level. And I will tell you, once you've seen one state legislator, you've seen one state legislator. They're all different. So our approach has got to be a little bit different. But we need to make sure that everybody gets involved. And this is why we have to stay vigilant in what we're going to be doing moving forward. And that's why we need you guys. I think one of the things I will tell you, it's going to fall on us. NCART, which is made up of McKay Lee and myself, are here to take on those issues. That's my word. But we're going to need you. We're going to give you the support you need. We're going to give you the materials you're going to need. We're going to give you the encouragement to go out there and fight for your patients. We're there for you, plain and simple. I would also tell you that we need to remember what we did with seat elevation, the lessons we learned. We all came together. We all worked together. And we're going to get this done. And the lesson there is when we work together, when we go ahead and focus on what's good for the patient, we can take on any obstacle, we can take on any issue, and we can take on any opposition. But it's going to take everybody. So I'd ask you to come by the booth, drop by, drop off your card, say hello, grab a cup of coffee, okay? Learn about what NCART has to offer and what we're doing to protect the industry and the patients we serve. NCART is not just for providers and manufacturers. It's for this entire industry. We want to be there to support you. We want to be there to ensure that the people that need this equipment get it and that you have the tools necessary to deal with all these things that we're fighting. Remember what that great man said. Maybe not so great, maybe more infamous than great. If you won't, who is going to protect our patients if we don't do it? And again, that stuck with me for all these years. It'll stick with me from moving on. I want to thank all of you for the work that you do for this industry, but most importantly, for the patients that you serve. Please stop by. And again, thank you. Enjoy the conference.
Thank you, Wayne. Last, but certainly not least, Weezy Walker, the Executive Director of NARTS.
I want to reiterate what everyone's already said. It's so great to be here in person, but I did think about this morning that, we could be Zooming in our pajamas instead. For those of you that are not familiar with NARTS, NARTS stands, it's not NERTS, it's NARTS. Stands for the National Registry of Rehab Technology Suppliers. And our organization was created to identify the individuals who met a criteria to be a CRT supplier. NARTS was created in 1992 by a group of stakeholders who recognized the need for a standard practice and code of ethics. And a lot of you are too young to remember this, myself included, but there were no standards at that time. And if you stop and think about it, it's kind of scary. And granted, we didn't have all the wonderful products to offer, but it was still important that you understood what you were doing with that client when you put them into 90-90-90 positioning or whatever was going on at that time. As more product became available, it was clear that suppliers needed continuing education to keep current with technology and techniques. And so NARTS has focused on providing that education. NARTS has been an organization that is directed by a board that is made up of registrants, people who work in the field. And I really believe that makes our organization better at understanding what those needs are and how we might meet them for that person who's providing that human touch to the client in the fitting of the chair and working with the clinician. And that made our vision clear of what our goals and our direction need to be. In 2008, NARTS came up with a teleconference, and that was where you called in on a phone and listened to a presentation for a couple hours. And doesn't that sound stimulating and fun? In 2011, we went to the webinar platform, and that allows the presenter to have more interaction with the attendees. They can ask questions and so forth. NARTS offers about 24 live webinars every year, and then they are put in our on-demand library, and which has over about 125 currently. So registrants or anyone accessing our education can actually go in and say, I want to know more about this or this. It's a great library, and I hope you'll check it out. I also like to mention that last year we awarded over 8,000 CEU certificates. So people are finding a lot of value in our education. In 1995, NARTS published a newsletter that they cleverly called NARTS News. And in 2008, it became a magazine, a publication called Directions. And if this magazine is the de facto journal for CRT, each issue talks about people, there's features on people who use the equipment, people who prescribe the equipment, manufacture the equipment, and provide the equipment. And this is another way to raise awareness of our industry. Each issue will include articles from my friends at Clinician Task Force, NCART, and RESNA that kind of gives you a broad scope of what's going on. Raising awareness is very, very important. And in the early 2000s, our founder, Simon Margolis, pitched a plan to the board to offer education and advocacy all in one event. And partnering with NCART, they did the first event called CELA, Continuing Education and Legislative Action. And that event has carried over. We missed 1 year. You can guess what year that was, 2020. And in 2021 and 22, we had to change it to a virtual conference, but we wanted to keep the communication open with our legislators. We wanted them to know what complex rehab technology does for people. And so we felt it was very important to bring as many consumers as possible to the Hill with us and let them tell the story. They have the most powerful voice. The best part about these events is that over the years, people have formed relationships and bonded over advocacy. And I'm happy to report that a lot of people are still very involved in advocacy. And as you know, it's a small world that we live in. So we need all the people we can get to help us spread the word. I'd also like to mention at this conference in 2019, I met with some people from Canada to talk about if NARTS would be a good fit for suppliers in Canada. And it was kind of back and forth. Are we US based? You know, Canadians want their own organization. But you know what? When the committees got together and started talking, we realized that the differences are not as great as you would think. That unfortunately, suppliers, wherever they are still facing the same issues. By the end of 2021, we had over 225 Canadian registrants join the registry. I think that's awesome. And I also have to mention that NARTS is currently developing a supplier education program. And I've been told that people are aging out of this field. I don't see that, but that's what I've been told. And all kidding aside, there's a serious issue of bringing new people into the field that they may not even know exists. So this program is designed to take somebody who knows nothing and give them the foundational knowledge that they will need to work effectively as a valuable team member with clinicians and their clients. So in conclusion here, I want to say our organization only thrives because of the dedication and passion of dozens, it's probably hundreds of CRT stakeholders. And I would obviously not be possible to name all those people, but that's what keeps us going. And I hope that you'll make an opportunity to come by our booth and see what NARTS can do for you. And thank you. Have a great conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Weezy, and all of the executive directors. Please do thank them for all that they do for the industry and visit them throughout the conference. So we do have some exciting plenary sessions, again, including today. So in just a minute, I'll introduce you to Chaz Kellem, who's talking about accessibility, diversity, and inclusion in the disability community. Tomorrow, look forward to bright and early ethics, education, and outcomes, a panel on how future credentialing will shape complex rehab technology, moderated by Lori Watanabe. And on Saturday, our closing plenary session is features Steve Spahn, the CEO of Able Gamers, the experience of helping people have player experiences. So without further ado, Chaz Kellem is the program manager for diversity and inclusion at Highmark Health. He's born and raised in Pittsburgh and is a local and national volunteer and disability advocate. He serves on several nonprofit boards, is involved in community adaptive sports, and on and on. I could probably introduce him for the next 40 minutes, but instead I will just let you listen to him. So again, please welcome Chaz Kellem.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. All right, come on. We got to do better than that. Good morning, everyone. We are at ISS in person, y'all. Give yourself some love. Give yourself some love. We're here. We're here. So I am so thrilled to be here with you this morning to take a couple of moments to talk about the intersection of disability, diversity, inclusion, equity, and so forth. There was once a young man born and raised in a mid-sized city, was educated, thoughtful, very rarely lost an argument until he got married. That's another story. Was always thriving to do research, always enjoyed finding the facts and learning the truth. If you haven't guessed it, folks, that was me. I wanted to be a lawyer at one point. Now, while my career took me in a different direction and I found other passions, I remember all of the work that people did for me to help me to possibly live that dream. This is me taking a moment in today's session to thank all of you, researchers, therapists, engineers, every person that believes in a person that uses the wheelchair or a piece of assistive technology that allows us to have those dreams, to have those visions of what we can do. So thank you. I believe it's important when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion that we recognize the land that we're on today. We heard some great information about the countries that are represented at today's conference. It's important that we pause to recognize the land that we're on and those that were here before us and recognize the value of those stories, right? A land acknowledgement is a perfect way to do that. So I wanted to take a moment early in my remarks to do just that. I also think it's important to say early on that I don't represent every person with a disability. I don't represent every wheelchair user. I identify as a cisgender male, African-American, wheelchair user, a brother, a friend, a husband, a community member, an activist, but I don't represent all of those individuals. And that's what makes diversity, equity, and inclusion such a valued topic for all of us. The uniqueness that each individual brings makes this work so very important. The idea of if you build it, they will come, one shoe fits all. We've heard a variety of those analogies and puns, but we have to be open-minded to recognize that each individual is different. This is me, born and raised here in Pittsburgh. And by the way, welcome. Welcome to Pittsburgh. We're so glad that you're here. My undergraduate degree is from Edinburgh. My master's is from a local institution, blah, 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 right? Resume stuff. I'm me. A hungry young man for opportunity, for access, to simply be seen. For a long time, our community, right, individuals with disabilities were left out, ignored, put to the side. And as you think about the other identities in which I am a part of, think about the more elements of marginalization that I have experienced over the course of my life. I enjoy this life, though. So this is not some after-school special where some soft music is going to play on the next slide, right? We all seen those stories. And this is not designed to be this motivational speech and he's awesome. I know I'm awesome, okay? Right? This is designed to connect the dots for us when we think about the elements and components of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how it connects to the work that all of you do in this room. And I am part of that story. I learned this at a very young age, that how I approached, interacted with the life and the environment ultimately empowered me, motivated me, and encouraged me. I know some able-bodied people with some really bad attitudes, and they are having more challenges and obstacles than I am, right? When we begin to recognize the value of our attitude and our approach, right, we can begin to change the experiences of others. Now, when you read in your program that this has components of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Some of you probably got a little nervous, a little uncomfortable. Because when you think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, belonging, accessibility, there are some fears and some expectations that we have when we approach this subject. My ask of you is to be open-minded, to learn how to be a bit more comfortable in the uncomfortable, right? We have to understand that all of us, regardless if we're a people leader, a boss, we're an executive director, we're a student, we're a therapist, we're a counselor, we have an opportunity and almost an obligation, right, to make a difference and think about diversity, equity, and inclusion components tied in to our work. I'm living proof that it matters, right? That's young Chaz on the screen. Yes, I was a cute kid. I didn't grow very much, but that's me. I'm living proof that it works, right? African American, born with a disability. I'm a husband, I'm a friend, I'm a community member, right? We need to make sure that we see beyond the diagnosis. We need to be able to think about the whole person. I need people like you to see me. If I didn't have people that believed in me, that supported me, that took care of me, that coached me, right? I'm not sure where I would have been. But I'm living proof that this works. I'm living proof that this matters. Here's what I'm going to tell you, folks. Hard times don't discriminate. And every person in this room has a story to tell. And all of us have a connection to diversity, equity, and inclusion in some way. We have to really challenge ourselves to really think about how that ties in to our work and to this topic. Three things I've learned. Common sense is in common. I want diversity, equity, and inclusion to be so embedded in the work that we all do, tied to accessibility, tied to access, that we don't need diversity, equity, and inclusion professionals. I want to put myself out of a job. That's the dream. That's the mic drop moment. When I lose, I never want to lose the lesson, right? I've made some mistakes. I'm going to make many more, but I always want to make sure that I try to leave that moment with a lesson or an experience, something to do better next time. As an advocate for the disability community, I want to make it better than I found it, right? We've come a long way as a community. We've come a long way as a world. We still have some work to do in this space. So what's our role in that, right? Great achievements involve great risk. I believe that diversity, equity, and inclusion involves us to be a bit uncomfortable, as I mentioned, but it's a risk. I'm going to give you some challenges today that I want you to take with you back to your institutions, back to your employers, back to your communities to challenge them, right? So what can we do to be better? And that's what we're going to get into as we continue on. To start in diversity, equity, and inclusion, we have to understand the value of our words. Sometimes we get so caught up in what we say, what we don't say, what's going on in communities, what's going on in society, that we forget to take a moment to listen. The art of grace is almost lost. Give yourself and others a little bit of grace. There are billions of things in the world, folks, that you don't know, especially when it comes to DE&I. Give yourself and others a little bit of grace. Now, in about 30 minutes here, when you leave this session, don't go out this room and say something ridiculous and say Chaz gave you permission to do so. That's not me giving you a free pass. That's simply acknowledging where you were raised, how you were raised, where you went to school, the experiences that you had, all lead to the person that's sitting here today. But as we learn, we grow, we have to do better. And part of that is simply thinking about what we say, approaching how we say it, And as you have your appointments with your clients, as you interact with your colleagues, right? I want you to have me in your mind a little bit. Not necessarily to censor what you say, but to be mindful of the power of our words. It's important that we begin to level set when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So here you'll see 3 components that I believe are so important to this topic: understanding, acknowledging, and knowing. To put this simply, diversity is the action of knowing, understanding, and challenge yourself to learn about people, places, and things outside of your bubble, outside of your normal. This is the education part, right? This is the intentional action to learn, to grow, okay? But we have to understand, we have to acknowledge our gaps, right? And then we have to really work diligently to fill in those gaps. And that's not me encouraging you to call the one person where English is not their first language, or the one person in the LGBT plus community, right? That's doing your homework first and then proceeding from there. Because oftentimes we can't get below the surface, right? We only see our client, our consumer, our employee for what's above the surface. Very rarely do we think about what's below, right? This is an iceberg. About 10, 20% resides below, above the surface. Think about all of your identities here. Reflect with me quickly. The identities in which people may notice when they see you right away. But think about all the things that live below the surface. Things that make you who you are. Socioeconomic status, location, religion, political affiliation, right? Sexual orientation, values. Think about all the components of those you see, those you interact with that make them who they are. And think about this, right? The person that helped me get my wheelchair had to begin to understand those things for me in order to fit the whole person. I am more than just my physical disability. I am comprised of all those things. I am just not a name on a piece of paper or my diagnosis. I am all of those things. I need my wheelchair, my hand controls, my reacher, my kitchen, all of my world assisted technology to match my lifestyle. I'm busy, I'm active. No longer is the disability community sitting at home all day. We're changing the world, folks. And our life is full of more than just our diagnosis or disability. So as we're seeing people, as we're interacting, we have to think about what's below the surface. Some interesting statistics, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion is a trending field right now, a trending topic as our world is sort of always evolving. Our world is, chaotic. Our world is, something's always happening. We live in a very interesting time, right? And while diversity, equity, and inclusion is yes, it's about seeing the person, it's about seeing the people, right? There's some interesting data out there that supports why this is important. There's a business case to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Scott Page, a mathematical economist out of the University of Michigan, performed several computer simulations. He proved that diverse teams are going to outperform non-diverse teams. Why? Diversity in lived experience, diversity in education makes that team more resilient, smarter, more efficient, more effective. That's a reason to diversify our workforce. That's a reason to diversify the teams in which you're building. I think it's so important to recognize that individuals with disability that are part of marginalized communities, in addition, right, to the disability community, have to overcome so much more, have to worry so much more, right? Folks, I am an African-American male that carries that weight as well. I am a husband that worries about his spouse just as much as every other person, right? So how do we begin to navigate the world in which we live in addition to having a disability? I ask your help in doing that in the roles in which you have. Because there's a role for you in this journey. Diversity skills, diversity awareness, diversity consciousness, right? It really comes down to how can we begin to understand ourselves? How can we begin to understand where we fit into this at, right? How can we begin to understand our own blind spots? How can we begin to acknowledge, right, that we have some work to do as individuals, as companies, right? This is a practice that you're going to have to be authentic with, that you're going to have to continuously work towards improving, right? And this takes me to inclusion. There's often a misunderstanding about the DEI terms. Diversity is the first part. Inclusion often falls into the last part. And this is about the authenticity, about making everyone feel included. Don't invite me to a party as your token anything. You invite me to serve on a board, invite me because you care about what I have to say. You value my education, you value my experience. Don't invite me to a party to have your only African-American person, right? Don't invite me to anything just because I feel or I check a box. We have to do diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility because it's the right thing to do. We are not just checking a box here and moving on. Our world changed a couple years ago with the tragic incident of George Floyd. Many companies around the world recognized that they were doing diversity, equity, and inclusion, but they were just doing it wrong. We have to change the game, folks. We can't continue to do it the way we were. Equality is often thrown in as a term. I use equity, right? We have to focus on equity, and equity is recognizing that not all of us have the same starting place. And in order to make sure that each person gets to what they want, we have to first recognize that not everyone is starting from the same place. And then we have to listen to the consumers. Your books, your education, this conference is going to give you lots of value information, but nothing is going to replace taking the time to listening to the consumer. It's often a misstep. I'm pleading with you and asking with you to please listen to those you're working with. Listen to our students, listen to the clients, listen to the community members. Take that extra time to listen, and then we will together get to inclusion. Kimberly Crenshaw, 1989, patented the term intersectionality. It began to recognize that we are more than just one thing, right? We are more than just one thing. And it started because African-American women were often left out of this conversation, right? And you'll see here a quote from her. It began to recognize the fact that, again, we're comprised of multiple identities, and how do we get there together, right? Our education, our race, our religion, our heritage, our age. I just turned 40 and began to recognize the value of talking about age. Is 40 old, y'all? No? So I'm still a young stallion is what you're telling me. All right, good to know, good to know. Thank you for that. But back to intersectionality, right? The fact that it's connected all together, right? But not only do these things identify us, the lens in which we see and navigate the world differs. I ask you today to leave this session recognizing the fact that different perspectives exist. I'm not asking you to change your morals or your beliefs. I'm not asking you to change your positions. I'm asking you to recognize that because of the overlapping identities in which we all have, different perspectives exist. And everyone plays a part in impacting diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, I'm specifically going to take a moment to talk to those who identify as white and those that identify as men. Oftentimes, our white men can't see themselves in this journey, right? I really am talking right now for all of us to challenge ourselves to think beyond that. right? I need all of our people leaders in this room, our managers, our directors, executive directors, to open your doors, challenge yourself, and give people like me an opportunity. I need all of us to support our students, build them up, give them an opportunity to learn and grow. I need us to recognize that while many of us in this room, English is our first language, that's not the world. What type of services and supports are we acknowledging to make sure that those that English isn't their first language are supported as they navigate the United States in our supportive services? For our LGBT plus community, what are we doing to support them? Yes, individuals with disabilities fall into that community as well, folks. It's not separated. There's a point of intersectionality here. I'm gonna go back to what I said. I'm not asking you to change your beliefs. I'm not asking you to change your morals or values. I'm simply asking you to acknowledge the fact that different perspectives do exist. I'm also asking you to understand the impact. The fact that feeling excluded hurts. Take 10 seconds right now and think about a moment in which you were excluded. All your colleagues went to lunch and forgot you. Everybody went to happy hour, forgot you. Your kid, your niece, your nephew, your grandkid was not invited to a family or to a classmate's party. Those moments are moments that matter. They leave an imprint on us. I want us to be thoughtful, proactive, and deliberate to minimize those moments for others. What can we do to make sure that inclusion is what we live by? Inclusion drives our decisions. Inclusion fuels our work. Because those moments of exclusion matter. Those moments of exclusion make a difference. I want to talk a moment about this social construction, right? This social construct here, meaning that oftentimes individuals fall into a certain bucket, right? A certain principle, a certain area, and it's hard for us to think beyond that. And this is where our biases kick in, right? You're driving your car, someone cuts you off, your mind automatically tells you that person was of a certain maybe sex, gender, race, nationality, right? You call your customer service line, you hear an accent on the other line, your mind automatically does something, right? We need to make sure we challenge ourselves as well. This is me calling all of us out to do better, to recognize our own biases, to check ourselves, to recognize that we have homework to do, right? To make sure that we're not allowing certain people, especially the individuals in which we're supporting, that we don't get them stuck in that bucket or that box. That we support them as they break down the stereotypes, the expectations. It used to drive me nuts as a kid that the expectations were so low for people with disabilities. That I used to get, wow, you came to work today. Or when I go to the grocery store, I can check out by myself. Or when someone asks me if I need help and I tell them no, they get upset at me because I told them no. Right? Let's continue to change the game, folks. Right? And how can we do that? We can do that by breaking down this social construction. And our goal here is liberation. Right? You've probably seen variations of this image, right? I want to make sure that not only are we thinking about sort of providing people the tools that they need in order to succeed, I want to break down the fence. I want to break down the policies. I want to change the procedures. I want to make sure we remove whatever barriers are in place to allow each and every person to be successful and meet their goals that they want. I want to put myself out of business. But I need you all to do that. I need you to take your place. I need you to mess some stuff up, right? I need you to go back to your institutions, your employers, review your policies and procedures manual, and review it from a diversity, equity, and inclusion perspective, right? I need you to evaluate if you open up your brochure or your pamphlet and everyone looks the same, or you go to your website and everyone looks the same, that's a problem. When you open up your website, when you go back to your office and you don't have the ability to change the language or accessibility tools on your website, that's a problem. And give yourself some credit if you do have those things, right? But I want us to think about how we're changing the game. And my ask of you is to take some action. Start now. I want you to leave this session and leave this amazing conference hungry. I've been to conferences throughout my career. You take all this great information home, you download the app, you hear all these great speakers, you network. What happens? You go home, this puts on the desk, piles of paper get on top of it. What you learn, unfortunately, gets buried because we're busy. I'm asking you right now to don't do that. I'm asking you right now to take some action. I'm asking you to do a diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging and accessibility audit of your organization. I'm asking you, right, to think about your hiring protocols. What are the questions that your interviews are asking? I'm asking you to think about the price of your equipment, right? The price of your equipment, and can the average person afford that equipment, access that equipment? I didn't have my first rigid frame chair until I was in college because I didn't know any better. I didn't have people in my life to help me. How can we avoid that from happening? How can we get the tools, services, and ports, younger people, and build young leaders to help us continue to move this movement forward, right? We have to do something. We have to do it now. Yes, I understand that you all are full-time committed to this, representing countries around the world. Some of you have been doing this for longer than I've been alive, and thank you for that. But I'm pushing you this morning to do more. And as you go to your next session, I want you to think about how diversity, equity, and inclusion and components of that are rooted in that next session. Right? This is embedded in the work that we're all doing, and all of our sessions have DE&I somehow connected to it. And I'm grateful that your ISS leadership and the conference leaders, by the way, give them a round of applause one more time, all your conference leaders. Give them love. Give them love. This is not easy to have, all of you here today, so thank you. But that they valued diversity, equity, and inclusion enough to have it as part of your plenary this morning. And I'm going to say this again, do your homework. Here you'll see a few common texts or recommended texts that I encourage you to think about reading, and I could give you a laundry list, folks. Do your homework, right? Call out your institutions, make them accountable, right? Use me as a mechanism to do just that, right? But we have to think about how we can do better, be better, and that journey starts now. Dr. Marilyn Brewer, a social psychologist, came up with a theory, and the theory talked about how we all want to be our own unique self while also belonging, being part of something bigger than ourselves. So how can you all allow yourselves, your colleagues, your clients, your consumers, community members, be their true authentic selves, while also recognizing the value of belonging to something bigger than them? As we wrap up today's session, I want to remind you the value of being an ally. I want to remind you the value of listening. I want to remind you the value of being uncomfortable. I want to remind you and ask for you to continue to stand against all injustices. I want to remind you that there are people just like me out there in the world that need people like you to continue to advocate, to continue to listen, to continue to show up even when you're tired, even when you're upset, even when you're frustrated. I need you to continue to show up. And finally, I need you to continue to give people like me opportunities to be part of the solution, be part of the journey. And thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your conference. It's been a pleasure to take the time.